Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this edition of the Micon Podcast. Today, on this edition, we're still talking about democracy of Nigeria, which has gone on for 25 years since 1999, when the military went back to their barracks. And one of those, perhaps a young, vibrant Omoyele Sowore at that time, was in the forefront as a student union leader, and he lent his voice not only in the fight against the military junta, but against the cancellation and the annulment of the MKO Abiola election. Mr. Omoyele Sowore has been a two-time presidential candidate in this country in the general election and is live with us on this edition of the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, for joining us.
Thank you for bringing me.
Thank you. Would you say 25 years, looking back, a student union leader at a time, a lot of people will describe you notorious. A lot of few people will say you were a very difficult person when it comes in the face of the tyranny of the military at a time. 25 years down the line since the military went back to the barracks, how do you reminisce on those situations and those struggles?
We had lots of high hopes in 1993. And it's very important to state that we did not partake in the election on a partisan level. That is to say, we never joined a political party. We never supported a candidate. As a matter of fact, in 1992, when Nelson Mandela visited Nigeria and visited the University of Lagos, we heckled and drove away MKO Abiola from our campus, the University of Lagos, because we felt it was too close to the military. And we do not trust Babangida at that time, who was the military head of state, to hand over power. So when we were able to eventually force Babangida's hands to schedule an election, because he had been postponing the election since 1990. As a matter of fact, his postponement of the election was what made Charlie Boy's music at that time, 1990. They had a single, 1990, to become popular. And because it was, he just kept changing the date of transition to democracy. So when 1993 came and it was very clear on the horizon that we're going to have elections, all of us were kind of relieved that we will stick with this and we will manage whatever we can get the military off the stage, and then move on to a civilian or democratic era. This is what we've been fighting for a very long time as university students, but that was not to be. The elections were very free and fair. One of the best, at least on the surface, that Nigeria has ever had. And we expected the results to be released. They were counting and we were seeing the results transparently. The election process was also likely transparent because they had what they call option A4, which was that people basically queued behind their candidates and they were counted right there on the line and the results were available. So there was no difficulty in tabulating the results. They had come in, and then we waited, waited, and one day we saw Babangida disheveled on TV, announcing that they had to stop the continuation of tabulation and release of the results because they discovered there were some irregularities, and that broke our hearts. But we were not broken. We immediately took up the fight to ensure that the elections were not annulled. That was what Babangida did on June 17. This election held on June 12, 1993. By June 17, he had begun the process for the annulment. So 25 years later, you're looking at all the struggles we had, our expectations, and I will tell you that one of the most disappointed because I was one of the few young people who were at the forefront of the struggle for democratic rule at that time. We ended up in 1999 with what I would call civilian rule, not even civil rule in my view. And what has followed ever since then has been a terrible democratic experiment and experience.
But would you say that it paid off, the struggle and the fight at the time? Has it paid off?
Well, we succeeded in driving the military out of power, but we probably did not succeed in driving the militarists out of power. Because if you drive the military out of power and you end up with a former military leader, I don't see how you can call that a proper transition. If it had been that after the military left power, we were able to also remove all the roots and branches from our political system and never had to deal with anybody who participated in the military, in the militarization of Nigeria, then it would have been proper to say, well, we properly transited. But this wasn't a proper transition at all, because one of the things that happened to us, and we've discussed this a lot and spoken openly about it, is that those who participated in driving the military out of power shouldn't have abandoned the stage immediately. We should have just transitioned into a political party and sell ourselves to the people as their legitimate representatives. And I'm sure if we did that in 1999, we would have succeeded in capturing power. And then we would have been able to show the Nigerian people what we are made of. Some of our leaders at that time didn't trust the military. They still felt that we need to babysit the process of the transition. And while we were doing that and saying that we don't want to soil our hands, because we really didn't believe in politics, partisan politics. We hated politicians. We hated whatever they stood for, and we hated politics as it is known then. We would have been able to take that power and put Nigeria in a different direction and trajectory. But we didn't do that. And 4 years after that, by the time Chief Gani found me and the others who were back home at that time, I left in 1999, even before the election. Before they got their acts together, these guys had consolidated and taken over the reins of power and started modulating and adjusting and moderating the system to suit their own particular caprices and agenda.
So you call it a civilian rule. That means you do not believe that we actually transited from the military to a democratic rule.
Let me break it down to you. You know, when they left Nigeria, it's part of the reason I left Nigeria in 1999. When it started as a joke that Abiola was going to be released and killed. We didn't believe it. So when he was released, in fact, we were waiting in Lagos, and I was a lead person, and we were meeting at the home of one of his wives, Onitiri Abiola, on a regular basis, preparing for his return, because we had heard he was going to be released. But something was very clear, that his release was not going to be related to the transition program, because Emeka Yanku, who was the Commonwealth Secretary General, had come and visited Abiola. The UN Secretary General at that time, Kofi Annan, had visited Abiola in detention. And you're asking yourself, why was Abiola in detention? And you are visiting him in detention, putting pressure on him. Whereas the military guys who had been arrested, or former military leaders who had been arrested and charged and prosecuted, and also detained or awaiting some kind of execution of their sentences, were immediately released, particularly Olusegun Obasanjo. He was released. And the minute he was released, he was traveling the world. I think he even went somewhere and said Abiola was not the Messiah. I don't know, maybe he said that before he went to jail or not. I don't remember now. But it was very clear that the transition program was not going to include Abiola, who was in detention, awaiting trial according to them, because his trial had been bungled. They couldn't try him for the offenses of treason. Why was it that they released Obasanjo, Obasanjo at that time had already been sentenced. I don't know his sentence, maybe life imprisonment or death. I don't remember which now. He was released. But Abiola, who didn't commit any crime, they kept him in detention in Abuja. And then I later found out he was detained in Kado area of Abuja. And they kept putting pressure. He kept having all these spurious visitors and then putting pressure on him. Eventually brought him to the villa, served him a cup of tea, and that was the end of it. And the people who did this were the notorious, American diplomats are known for doing shady things. Pickering and Susan Rice. So this is where we knew that these guys weren't preparing for transition to democracy, that somehow there was a decision by the West, whomever was involved, and the political class in Nigeria at that time to have some kind of transition that would keep the military partly in power. And that was what happened. Obasanjo came out of detention with 20,000 naira. 20,000 naira. Before Obasanjo was released from detention, his family members were fighting over how to sell his properties, including generator. This is public knowledge at that time. Only for him to come back, and then he became a millionaire or billionaire overnight, because that was the plan. That's what I meant when I said there was no decision to transit Nigeria from military to civilian rule. So the military eventually had to choose one of their own. And I will tell you that the political class, including those who were fighting on our side at that time, were complicit in this. I remember that when Abiola was in detention, all of us were in Lagos asking for him to be released first and foremost. A delegation of some of the political leaders of the Nadeco part went to Abuja to meet with Abubakar, who was military head of state then. They did not insist on meeting Abiola first or his release before that meeting. And I think that was what greenlighted the Abubakar regime, that it was time to finish off Abiola and set Nigeria on the trajectory of a different political agenda. And further, these same people now started following Salam Abubakar up and down, including coming to the Chicago State University. And maybe that's where you can make the connection now between what these Nadeco guys, including Bola Tinubu, must have been involved in this. After Abiola was killed, they brought Abubakar Abdul-Salam to US at the University of Chicago, Chicago State University, where Tinubu purportedly graduated, to give him an award. I was there with a few friends of ours to protest against it. And who did we see there? Olusegun Oshoba and all these people who we thought were Nadeco people. And we said to ourselves, my goodness, these people were probably in bed with these guys, even while we were killing ourselves over this Abiola matter. This is Chicago State University. But it was the same day, the protest we had outside and the confusion that followed, because they never expected a protest, led Abubakar Abdul-Salam being served a court summon to come and explain how he killed Abiola. And that shook him for a long time. They had to settle out of court, pay some Abiola family off, and settle the matter out of court. The Nigerian government had to settle the case. But it was because of the protests we had on the ground on that day. I think this would be around year 2000 or so. So that tells you the depth of the complicity of some part of the so-called pro-democracy activists in the country, and how they were in bed with till today. Abdul-Salam Abubakar is one of the closest friends of the Nadeco side of things. And these are Babangida's people.
Interesting. What do you think, with the benefit of hindsight, that could have been done to set the stage in the manner in which you think could have served the pro-democracy fighters right?
I think it would have made sense if all of us came under one umbrella at that time. And, there was a political party, there was the NCP at that time. We could easily have forced the military to register it. This was actually in existence since 1994. Chief Gani Fawemi created that political platform. And for all the pro-democracy groups, students, labor, to come under that umbrella and use it to fight for and get power. And if we presented Chief Gani Fawemi in 1999, I have no doubt that he would have beaten Obasanjo. I don't have any doubt about that. But by the time he came 4 years later, it was too late. Uh, who was presented from the Southwest, Obasanjo and Shivolu Falai. Same, it's just different faces on the same coin, on different side of the coin. Lulu Falai was an IMF World Bank lackey who was a Babangida boy, as they called themselves in those days. Obasanjo was a former military dictator who was a Babangida benefactor. So at the end of the day, Nigeria went back to Mina to choose the two candidates for the election in 1999, sadly.
I mean, 25 years later, you think that you and a few people can rewrite history by being part of the process, by leading the process. Is that right?
No, what we decided in 2017, 2018, a bunch of us younger pro-democracy activists, was to create a platform to start advancing what we believe will liberate Nigeria. We saw Nigeria as a newly or a new colonized state, and we desired that we will go and liberate Nigeria. That was what drove us to set up a movement known as Take It Back movement, and eventually got a political party registered. If you have some confusion about this, you can look at what the ANC did. I don't want to be calling ANC too frequently these days, considering what they have become in South Africa. Now, I think the ANC set up their own political party as their own political arm of winning back power for blacks as far back as 1918 or 1928. And then eventually kept that platform running and advancing their own, their own manifesto for a Black-dominated South African society, a just, fair, and egalitarian society in South Africa for Blacks. So it's the same way we looked at it, but that did not preclude us from waging the liberation struggles that is needed. That is why we did Revolution Now, for example, because our struggle wasn't going to be limited to, partisan elections and only. We had a country to liberate. So, but what the political arm of our struggle does is to tell people, we are pro-democracy people and we believe in democracy. But the best democracy that Nigeria needs is a democracy that is devoid of manipulation, of the forces of corruption. A diluted democracy wasn't going to serve Nigeria serve Nigeria in any form of nature, in a way that liberates and empowers and brings prosperity, security, and justice to the people. So that is what we started in 2018. And it was because we deeply looked at it and said to ourselves, we're going to keep complaining every year. When the Nigerian people need protesters, they'll call on us. When they need leaders, they'll call on the people who are oppressing them, or they'll go with the people who are oppressing them, people who impoverish them, the people who have turned them into beggars, and the people who made Nigeria the poverty capital of the world, and the people who introduced to the lexicon of human lifestyle what is called multidimensional poverty. That is, that we needed to provide an alternative and speak to it and give it a face, a form, and character. And that's what we started in 2017, 2018.
But there are those who criticize your methods and your style. Those who say, why would you want to ask for a revolution in a democratic process? Are you thinking of rethinking your method, or is the same method you think works for you? Because the same energetic Sowore, who was an activist, now turned a politician. You imagine that those method probably needs change, isn't it?
No, they don't need any change. What needs to change is the objective conditions of the Nigerian people. And I am not here bluffing. I'm telling you that you cannot say that, you are in a democratic era when your democracy do not meet the tenets of democracy, when your democracy is devoid of rule of law, is devoid of free and fair elections, is devoid of freedom of association, freedom of speech, is devoid of economic prosperity. You can't claim that that is democratic era. So you can call it whatever you want, but you can't call it democracy. And if it is not democracy, you can't say it is democratic. So what we want to bring about is a democratic era. But what is the best democracy you can have in the world, in any country? It is for the people to decide that they want to change their situation and go for it. So why people vote in elections is because they believe that free and fair elections can take them in a direction that they can control those who represent them and those who are in power. And that translates to them being in power too. But when the people are alienated from the process of selecting their leaders through this rigged process against them, you can't call that democracy. And if you say to them that we can change that trajectory and you go for it, that is what is democratic.
But why would you ask for a revolution? The term revolution, you don't think is extra?
No, it's not. The revolution is the thinking that drives a process, and be very clear about it, a process that is inclined towards rapidly changing your situation. So if you are poor and you don't have any business being poor, a revolution brings you what you're entitled to, prosperity. If you are unhealthy because your hospitals were destroyed by your leaders, a revolution helps you restore your hospitals. It helps you restore your roads. It helps you restore the fundamentals.
But Mr. Sowore, where has this method?
It's not the only place.
Yeah,
it's not the only place where people embark on revolution or revolutionary action, even when they have what is the so-called democratic leaders in power. There was democracy, so-called. The people in Egypt were democratically elected, but they kept manipulating the process. The people in Tunisia were democratically elected before the people decided that they've had enough of the manipulation. What is important, Sheon, is for you to understand that what we started with is that this is not democracy. And if it is not, then you can't keep labeling it democracy. It would be unjust, unfair, and dishonest to say that, running elections in which the electoral body completely manipulates the process, disconnects the wires, unplug, a process of transparency, it's democracy. It is not. There's nothing to sugarcoat about it. And the extreme measures they take, to deprive the people of their rights to choose their leaders, to have prosperity, to have economic development, must be met with another extreme resistance that will restore the rights of people to be entitled to what belongs to them.
Are you worried? Because there are a lot of people who say that there's a political system which those who think that would they ever allow a Sowore be a president in Nigeria?
It's not about them allowing a Sowore. Now you are having a conversation that is direct, about the fears of the political class. No, we are saying that the people of Nigeria, united, empowered, and clear about the future, can elect and decide on their leaders. So it is up to those you are referring to. I don't know where they are located, but I know what you mean. To be ready to confront the people, or to be ready or decide to take the plunge when the people decide that, no, we're tired of being enslaved by a minority who sits in a corner, and decide for Nigerians that it is not the person they want that should become president, just like they did in 1979 with Obafemi Awolowo and Shagari. They did with an Abiola that clearly won the election, and they've done subsequently, manipulating the process. If we are not dealing with these misnomers, absolute, criminal manipulation of the process, then maybe you might have a point. But there's no point here. There's nothing to argue. There's nothing to sugarcoat. If they don't want a Sowore and the people want a Sowore, they will get a Sowore, and that is where I'm interested in is how the people can decide for themselves who they want, not a few people deciding for a majority who they don't want.
Yeah,
And
Mr. Sowore. Yeah.
factors on the
You've tried twice without success. What do you say to those some of those who had made comments about your political ideology or political trajectory? Who say maybe you should begin your aspiration by climbing through the ladder, maybe House of Reps, the Senate, or becoming a governor before gunning for the president. What do you say to them?
You see, the people who make those kind of arguments are the same people who presented a candidate without experience in Lagos to be governor of Lagos. What do you say to them? Tell me.
So you continue to run for president. That's what you say.
I just ask you, because the decision to run for president was a decision driven by the need to save our country, Nigeria, to liberate the country from the claws of these characters you are talking about. They're the ones framing this conversation you're having here. You understand? And with due respect, I have nothing against the young person I just referred to who ran for governor of Lagos without any political experience. If I have looked at his CV, he fits the bill. You get my point. But the hypocrisy there is that the people who says to him, that young person, that you can be the governor of Lagos, which is the sixth largest economy in Africa, bigger than a lot of countries, are the same people who are framing some of these narratives you are bringing in front of me today. So what do you say to them?
So I'm directly asking you, you will continue to run for president. Is that it?
No, the question you're asking me is not something you can divert by semantics. I want us to resolve that first.
No, but I'm not the one asking questions. I'm the one asking the question.
If I'm running for office, there's no question about the fact that I have decided the office that suits my temperament, suits my bill, suits my capacity, my character, and that suits my agenda for a prosperous, a peaceful, a secure Nigeria, a Nigeria that progresses. That is what I've chosen. So I'm not going to go back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I never knew what I was doing. That would be revolutionary confusion. I'm not confused about what I want or where I should be, where I fit into this program of national development in Nigeria.
Let me ask you. There seems to be some movement these days. We've seen Peter Obi meeting with Atiku Abubakar, and there seems to be the gathering of opposition political parties who believe that in truth, before they can defeat the APC in the coming election, there needs to be a coming together, some mergers, some alliances of some sort to be able to go to the election against the APC in 2027. Will you be willing to join the forces that are coming together against the APC in 2027?
Let me explain this to you, and this will answer my question. The People's Democratic Party was a coalition of these characters in 1999. They had a junior brother known as, I think it was a Action, was it the AC, or is it ACN?
Yeah.
So then in 2007, so many of the ACN people joined with the PDP. I think it was 2007 or 2009, was it 2003? Yes, they joined with the PDP. They had an alliance with the PDP. They had an alliance with Obasanjo, and Obasanjo defeated the ACN candidates, except in Lagos, where Tinubu had sway. But in truth, they had an alliance. They met with Obasanjo and said, "Oh, we're going to give you the presidency. We're going to work with you, and then you just let us retain our state." Obasanjo went beneath their backs and ruined all of them. That was how the Fayoshes came into power, the Alao Akalas came into power, I think the Benga Daniels of this world, they defeated Oshoba. It was an alliance. So what am I trying to tell you? There's nothing new about these mega alliances of deception. The question we should be asking ourselves is, after the alliances have been made, what is the agenda of the alliance? Is it to expand the watchers of people who have been killing Nigeria? You get your answer there. It is. And which alliance are you talking about that hasn't happened before? You know, all the people that are now saying they want to align with themselves all have aligned with ACN before. Atiku used to be a candidate of the Tinubu's alliance, I think ACN before. And while Tinubu had Atiku was working with Jonathan, he had a candidate in Nuhu Ribadu and sold Nuhu Ribadu to Jonathan and made Jonathan win Lagos. So these alliances have never stopped. And then the APC became an alliance of disgruntled PDP people, the Sarakis of this world, the Amechis of this world. All of them came together and formed the APC. And when time came and some of them lost out, some of them went back to the APC. I mean, the PDP, you know, and those who lost out have lost out. You know, the Amechis of this world now are left in the cold. What I'm telling you, just go and take a register of all these characters you're asking us to merge with. They have been around just traveling between these parties, gerrymanders, you know. So when we said to you, and now answer your question, that we are not interested in an alliance that is being formed to deceive and fleece Nigerians, what is so difficult for you to understand? Because these are not new people. They didn't fall from the sky. They have always been involved in alliances that is aimed at stealing and robbing the Nigerian people of their commonwealth. So what are we discussing? You know, except people have little memory, you know.
But there are those who say there are a few ones that don't belong. There's a Peter Obi factor in the mix, and you know the kind of following that he got in the 2023 election.
What is Peter Obi going to do for me? Tell me. Was he not in PDP before? Was he not in ABGA?
Is there a problem working with anyone from the PDP, or you don't just like the?
So you think that the DNA of the new alliance or the mega party will change because Peter Obi has new followers? Was he able to change it when he was in PDP? Did he change it when he was in ABGA? Why are you lying to yourselves? So that's the point I'm making, that you keep throwing up all these theories about how certain alliances will change Nigeria without fundamentally scrutinizing the characters behind it, you know. And this is where we have fundamental disagreements with.
What is your major problem? Because there are those who will say, show me anyone who is absolutely 100% innocent within the political space. Are you looking for saints to work with, or what exactly is your plan when the issue of mergers and alliance come up?
This is part of the subtle blackmail people throw at us. Oh, you know, show me a saint. You know, nobody is talking about sainthood here. If we're talking about sainthood, we all would have gone to the Vatican, all right, to go and consecrate one and just bring over to Nigeria. No, we are talking about history. We are talking about contemporary, you know, and old history. We are talking about characteristics and forms and nature of people. We are talking about even the DNA of the political class in Nigeria, and saying to you that we don't want to be part of it. We're not looking for sense. We're just looking at, you know, EFCC records. We are looking at their records as governors, their records as vice president. We are looking at their records in their own community, in the society in general. We're looking at their international records, and all of them come to a burden that has put Nigeria where it is today. So when we tell you that we reject that, we are not looking for sense. We're just telling you practically that based on what you and I know as journalists, that these guys have no intention to change Nigeria, and that we cannot be part of another deception referred to as any mega anything. The only mega thing that has ever happened with these alliances is fraud. You create a mega party, you come around, you steal. You were asking me earlier that, oh, why don't you start from the House of Representatives and, Senate? Don't some of the person you just mentioned, didn't their party have senators in the last election? Didn't they have House of Representatives members? What is it that they are doing there? Why haven't they changed the laws since they did? Have you heard that any one of them rejected their SUVs when they brought them 150 million naira each? In fact, the only two people that rejected the SUVs that I saw were some northern kids. One of them was El-Rufai's son. I guess his father stole so much money, he doesn't need an SUV from the National Assembly, so he can just grandstand about that. Otherwise, what have they offered you? So these are alliances. These are new political emergencies that you said was going to deliver us in 20, and then you voted for them. And then here we are. You can't explain why you voted for them or what they're doing. And you are asking us, those of us who have been very clear, whose position have come to pass. Several of our positions and predictions about where these things are going has come to pass. I guess what I can conclude is that you're just looking for the next set of renegades who will be relegated to the background so that you say, oh, look at Sowore now. Shebi went and joined them. Where is it today? What came out of it? Because all the people who said, if you can't beat them, go and join them. I know where their graveyard is in Nigeria, and you know too.
What would be your strategy then? I mean, in terms of cooperation, forming a coalition, or working with other people? Because it doesn't look like a road that is best traveled alone. It does look like there needs to be people that you can trust, that you can carry along in this journey if you want to become Nigeria's president. And if you want to run again in 2027, you might be able, you might need to come to terms that you'll be up against with a Bola Tinubu of the APC at the polls. Do you have a new strategy to run the race, Sowore?
If I have any strategy, which we do, I'm not going to tell you on your show. That's number one. The second aspect of it is to look at this statistically. Just look at the maths. Now, there are 250 million people in Nigeria. In the history of Nigeria, nobody has won an election with more than about 15 million votes. So what that does for you is to subtract that out of the entire population. But of course, you factor in number of registered voters, 88 million of them. So if Nigerians are willing to be liberated, we still have an excess of over 60 million voters who can turn the trajectory of the country away from these people you're talking about. The last election had the least participation of voters because a lot of people already knew what they were planning, and we won the party to attain it. So if Nigerians are serious, and those are the people we need, we'll form a coalition with them, and we still have 60 million people to go with. Why? What are you afraid of? So if out of the 60 million people, 30 million decide that we're done with this, we're not, by 12 noon, the country would have been liberated on election day. But what I keep saying to you is that the strategy is also not limited to, participating in another election. Because if liberation comes today to Nigerian people, by any means that they choose, they're not going to say, oh, until you vote for us. Because even those who you are talking about, they are devising strategies that are not going to be waiting for the next election cycle. They're already talking about regionalization. They're already talking about tinkering with the constitution because they know that the current system that they are operating is not sustainable. So those who want to outsmart them cannot also wait for another 4 years. Otherwise, you become part of the statistics of another election. And this is important for you to bear in mind. And this is why I never, never deny when people come and overwhelm me. What is the meaning of revolution? I said, it is a revolution because without a revolution, Nigeria would not make headway. We're not going anywhere except to break the back of
what do you mean?
People you asked me this. I've been on your show.
What do you mean by revolution? What is your definition of this revolution?
I have said it several times, and there's no point wasting our time going to define it again. If I open dictionary for you, you still ask me and during your next interview. It doesn't matter. Let's move on. You know my position on that by now.
Yeah, because you don't look like you're satisfied with the status quo, with the way the system is formed, but you cannot get your agenda done without going through the system. That is a set process. But when you say revolution, what exactly are you trying to erode the process, or what exactly are you planning to do?
The is that the system you're talking about is a tunnel, and that tunnel must be broken open.
How do you do that?
Well, that's what I'm telling you, that when it comes to that point, we'll get there, and you'll see it. It's just a matter of time.
There are those who will ask, what exactly does Sowore want to do when he becomes president? Should he become president? What do you have different? What ideas do you have that is so extraordinary, that you so believe in so much, that makes you want to be Nigeria's president?
There is none of the candidates, and with due respect to all the candidates, that has publicly stated, like I have done, extraordinary measures that will address Nigeria's problem from sector to sector. And at the point I divided Nigeria problem into two. That's part of it is institutional and the other part is foundational. And in the foundational part is constitutional as well. That one of the things is to fix the Nigerian constitution by the people themselves. And this constitution will be a new process of, making a new constitution, and we're going to get rid of the 1999 constitution completely. We are going to junk it. And the institutional aspect is what we described by talking about how to secure the country. We discuss security, we discuss power. I was the first to discuss in Nigeria's history how to bring about a mix of power outlets. I'm talking about energy now, that will resolve our power problem, because I know I don't need to be told that the power problem is not only institutional, it's also foundational. I'm talking about energy, that until you solve the energy problem of Nigeria, there's nothing else can function appropriately. Even security is dependent on energy, right? The prosperity, the economic prosperity we are looking for is dependent on our ability to provide energy at all levels. Our educational system will be powered by energy. The health system will be powered by energy. So our agricultural system will be powered by energy. There's no question about, so that is the base upon which all this will stand, and that it will be technologically driven. So I was the one who was talking about Spicer heat in those days, but I know you guys didn't pay attention to me. You paid more attention to the guys who didn't come for interviews than those of us who were coming to your studios every day to talk about how to fix Nigeria. The attention, and I counted in those days, Shell, when in 2019, I got only 4 interviews at Channel before you and I know we fought with with the owner of Channels. In 2023, maybe 7 max. But every day you turn on your TV, there's APC here, PDP here, and the candidates of these political parties never came to your studio. I didn't see you interview Atiku in the studio. Maybe if you did, you went to his house. I didn't see you interview Tinubu more than once. If you did, you probably went to his house, because you're more interested in listening to people who weren't talking about how to fix Nigeria.
I mean, it's difficult to convince you to things that you believe so dearly about. But with the current debate on minimum wage, what do you make of it? Because you've spoken about what you will do should you become Nigeria's president. How better do you think that can be managed?
Well, the minimum wage cannot serve the purpose for which it was designed if it's not considered a living wage. And it is very, very simple arithmetics. That anybody who goes to work every day, 5 days a week, deserve at least at the end of the month, his salary should be able to pay for his transportation or her transportation, should be able to pay for food, should be able to pay for some medicine, should be able to pay for rent, housing, and should be able to take care of the person or their immediate families. The question we've asked over time is, could 30,000 naira, in 2019 it was it was 18,000 naira, do this for an average Nigerian, even if the person doesn't have a family? The answer is no. I was listening to one semantic today by, it was former governor of Lagos State, Fashola, where he said wages are different from salary. And that's what we are fighting for is minimum wage. And wages are hourly. It's semantics, What you have in Nigeria is that people are likely paid at the end of the month. Yes, it's called salary, but that's just an adjective that is not relevant here. But he said something which was true. He said the hourly wage of a Nigerian when it's paid at the end of the month is 175 naira per hour. How can somebody work for 175 naira per hour? Because when you work for 175 naira per hour, what do you get when you work for 8 hours? Right? If you work for a whole day, what can 175 naira buy you? If you multiply 175 by 8? Nothing. But you want to come to the US, I'll give you a small example. Because when I came here in 1999, it was the first calculation I made. I was earning $7.50 a day. Per hour. It was a wage. You're right. But what it does for me is that one first hour pays for everything I need. I have what I call a transportation card, which at that time I think it was 50 cents. So you buy it, it takes you the whole day. It takes you. And you buy a cup of coffee for 50 cents. There's a popular bread here known as bagel. You buy a bagel for 50 cents and you have been able to cover all your basic needs within that first hour of work. So if you want to save, you can save the 7 hours for that day, the rest of the 7 hours at 750. And if you multiply that by a month, you understand why people want to jackpot at all times. It is not as if that's limited to that. You also, if you work in certain places, you have health insurance. If you don't have health insurance, the government gives certain categories of people what they call Medicaid. If you are old, after 65 years of age, you get Medicare. So what this means is that apart from just what you take home as your wage, you also have social benefits and protections that is there for you. If you earn less than $28,000 in those days, every tax that is deducted from your check is returned to you when you file your taxes. Where do you have that in Nigeria? So point I'm making is that we're not just hallucinating about minimum wage. We're just telling you that if you want people with dignity, you can't be paying them this amount of money that you call minimum wage in Nigeria. And then you turn around and the people who do even less work in the National Assembly, the political associates or personal assistants, some of them who don't even know the location of the offices of the people they claim to be personal assistants, they are all earning what you can call maximum wage. Why? Why is it that a Nigerian senator earns 29 million naira a month? when you break it down, the salary is actually a small amount. It's about 1 million. So, but why is it that they can earn that? And a Nigerian professor, university lecturer, cannot earn more than 600,000 naira in a month. Even that 6,000 naira was a result of constant strikes and struggle. And I don't think all of them do get that. And you go to the security agencies, people have to carry gun to protect you, to kill themselves. They're earning 56,000. That's what the police earns. And last time I checked, when the police ASP retires, his gratuity is 1.6 million naira, which is $1,000 at the end of 35 years of working. But a governor who served for 4 years is able to say to you by some kind of a crooked law that you build him a house in Abuja, you build in his place of governance where he was there for maximum 8 years, and you provide him cooks, you buy SUVs, 4 of them for him. Whenever that breaks down, you have to buy another one. You provide cooks, drivers, you have to give him 6 policemen, DSS. So where's the justice here, sir? And when we say to you that we can address that imbalance by paying people a living wage, in 2018, 2019, we proposed 100,000. Everybody said it will cost inflation. And then here is 2023. They are now still proposing 62,000 naira. What is an average Nigerian going to do with 62,000 naira minimum wage? That is, in a country where the inflation rate is 33%.
If you have your way, yeah.
And then those who claim that, if you pay them 100,000 in 2019, it will cost inflation. Ask them this simple question. Why is it that 30,000 is costing 33% inflation? That means that the inflation in Nigeria is not driven by wage. It's driven by economic mismanagement.
If you have your way, how would you fix this?
I have said it that if I have my way, we know where money is located. We know where to find money, hidden money, and we'll transparently make this available to the Nigerian people by giving them the right wages, by giving them a socially secure system, providing employment. You are not going to just give people wages and say, oh, we are paying you 500,000, and then you walk away and their roads are bad and their schools are bad. You don't have a social security system in place. You don't have a justice system in place. You don't have a security system in place. That is not what is going to be done. That was what I was telling you earlier when you asked me, what are the programs? That there's a program for massive creation of jobs, through the public works system, the process of creating energy revolution in a country that would have brought over 4 million jobs. And I'm not just banding around numbers. I'm saying it categorically because I've done my research and said we are going to improve electricity from a certain number of wattage to this, and that we will create, public work systems that will provide jobs for people. Some of them are some of the things they are toying with now, but they're doing as trial and error. So, and we provided all this information. If you still click on our page today, my campaign page and that of our political party, all this is clearly stated there. But I just want to ask, why is it that you guys in the media pretend that this is not exist and you keep repeating the question all the time? What do you want to do? Whereas this is in black and white. Fine print is not in fine print. It's not something that you have to be using binoculars to find. And some of the ideas, interestingly, have been pilfered by the political class. And we bring to the attention of people that was our idea. This is our idea. This student loan thing they were doing was we didn't promise student loan. We promised grants to students. 100,000 naira was what we proposed per semester to Nigerian students. And people said, no, it's not possible. Where are you going to get the money? When they took the idea, someone turn it to a loan. This idea of a coastal highway was something I proposed in Badagry in 2018 when I went there to campaign that there would be a coastal highway from Badagry, from the border of Benin Republic to Calabar. And, this would jumpstart the Nigerian economy. When they took it, they cut off the the Badagry side, and they made it a 47-kilometer highway that will help them to, provide the federal government to provide a highway for a private real estate development at Eco Atlantic, and that will join the Dangote refinery to it. That is the real plan. Every other thing you are hearing is just part of the deception. So, and this is happening because we have all failed to pay attention to those who have ideas, and we keep listening and we keep asking people to listen to people who are not speaking and people who have no idea. So in Africa, like Zeda Professor Patrice Lumumba said it, that people with ideas have no power, and people with power have no ideas. And we keep pushing power in the direction of people who have no ideas.
Let me briefly, let me get your view on this, because you seem to have a lot of ideas on the best ways to approach some of these. If the present administration under President Bola Tinubu approach you to join them, to work for them in the interest of Nigeria, would you take it?
No, I won't.
Why?
Because we have nothing in common. I know in advance that they don't have the bandwidth to accommodate our ideas. They're very limited in their ability to see what we have seen and how we see the greatness of Nigeria. So in joining them, you are only fulfilling the time-tested lie that if you can't beat them, you join them. And we don't belong in that category at all.
But I imagine that you are a very patriotic Nigerian who loves Nigeria dearly. And if your ideas are best suited to fix Nigeria's present problem, and the government of the day says, Sowore, please come and help us, and you say turn them down?
I'm not going to be able to help those who are not here to help Nigerians. If they are here to help Nigerians, they would not have plunged them into the multidimensional poverty they did the first day they came into power by removing subsidy. I wouldn't have done it by floating the naira and turning the naira. It used to be naira, now it's now a toilet paper. You can't do it by awarding a contract that is, very hidden and not transparent for 15 trillion naira to a friend of the president. So I don't fit into any of the way they operate at all. And any attempt to create the impression that I fit in there would always spell doom for me. So I'm not going to be able to help those who are not patriotic by claiming that my patriotism will help their own unpatriotism.
All right, just to wrap up this conversation, you've been given the opportunity to see your family. That's for the first time in almost 5 years. How does that feel, despite all of these challenges and arrests by the government based on the trial you're facing? What keeps you motivated to continue your fight for human rights, and how do you maintain your resilience and the fact that being away from your family, how does all this come to you?
Well, what I should say is that for the first time in 5 years, I was with my family yesterday, with my kids, for Father's Day. So it made me feel completely restored as a father. But these are not things that started yesterday. And some of these problems that I have confronted and I've been faced with in the last 5 years, or even more, are things that I factored into my life from the day I decided to be different, the day I decided that I will not be part of people who are just changing the Nigerian people, or that I will fight against oppression and high-handedness and corruption in society. So it's not something I started today. If you know a little bit of my history, you know that when I was living in university, my tenure on campus was extended by 2 years because I was fighting for democracy. When I finished eventually, after 2 years of extension, I started in 1989. I didn't finish school until 1995. I went to NYC in Yola, Adamawa State. The day I finished my NYC, the DSS came and arrested me. and said, they need to talk to me. I never, ever. They detained me for a week. It was a publication by Punch newspaper, written by a guy named Stanley Yakubu, for their Northern edition, that got me saved. Otherwise, nobody even knew. Everybody had left. They thought maybe I left like other person. Till today, I was never given my NYC certificate. Never, because I said I was against the Abacha regime. That was between 1995 and 1996. So my life has been like that. And when this happened, I said to myself, here comes another challenge, But if you don't struggle, you can't get freedom. Freedom comes by struggle. So it is great to be back with the family, but it is not itself the only thing I want to achieve. I'm glad and I'm grateful to my wife in particular for being the father and mother and everything in the house while I was absent. But there's a lot of kids out there that needs me to have basic education, have basic health care, to live a life that is fulfilling and a life that is worth it. There are kids who want to leave their mother's womb safely and, live through the most challenging period in Nigeria, which is first 5 years, that are all there that needs to be assisted and needs to be given a life. So whereas it is great and fantastic to be reunited with my family, the struggle to liberate our country, Nigeria, is a struggle that will continue regardless. So my motivation, I don't want to sound haughty. Sometimes I don't even know what is motivating me. I don't have it. It's not like something that my life didn't come with an owner's manual, unfortunately.
You don't fear that some of these things may affect your children somehow or your family?
Well, I mean, it's fundamentally tinkered with my family life. My mom is down with stroke. I found out the other day from my sister for the first time that my mom had stroke the day I was rearrested and kidnapped by the DSS in court. She was actually at the CNN office in Lagos to grant an interview, and somebody whispered into her ear that I'd been rearrested in court, and she just faded. I have a brother with 4 kids who was killed in near Benin City, and nobody till today could explain who killed him. So I have kids who grew up without me. My kids were little kids when I left. So there's no question about it. I'm not going to sit here and just override the question of who's affected. I'm sure everybody, both family and non-family, associates, friends have been arrested, have been affected by my activism. When Revolution Now protest took place across Nigeria, several persons were arrested, and some of them spent years in court dealing with these useless court cases. I myself was tied up in Nigeria for 5 years, and I still have, as we speak, and a criminal case hanging over my head for cybercrime. And while I was in Nigeria, I had 15 libel lawsuits filed against me secretly. They didn't even bother to serve me with summons, 15, while I was between 2019 and between 2019 and 2023.
Mr. Omoyele Sowore, thank you so much indeed for your time and the perspectives that you have shared. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for bringing me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But that's our conversation today on the Macon podcast with Mr. Omoyele Sowore. I hope that you've been able to, one way or the other, know his mind and how his mind works on some of these issues. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this edition. I'm Sean Kimale. See you next time.
Nigeria, they use computer. The leaders of Nigeria, they use radio where they turn the knob.